All right. My name is Siim Lepisk, and it's such a pleasure to be here. My background in IT goes back to '97 when I started to write code myself. I became an engineer, project manager, business developer. I started to run some companies. Now I'm focused on startups, and it's such a passion to link IT and strategy related things, look into digital marketing as well. Today we have a lovely panel called Digital, is that a business strategy? And if, then how and why? It's my pleasure to introduce you the panelists of today. The first we have Simo Leisti from Cisco. Simo, one of few words about yourself.
Thank you. So happy to be here, and for those of you who were not listening to my speech earlier on, I'm the general manager for Cisco in Finland and the Baltic countries. Been with Cisco now for a little over 5 years, and actually my background is from mechanical engineering, and I was delivering big machines for pulp and paper industry, and coincidentally my first working place is a paper mill, which is currently Google's largest data center. So I think the industries have gone the roundabout, and I'm experiencing the same. So, but great to be here.
It's a great example of the change that we are all witnessing, how it will change. Then we have from Dell, Vladimiras, Silkovas. How are you doing, Vladimiras?
I'm from Dell. I'm responsible for the enterprise business in Baltic countries, managing the partners, working with the customers. So I am joined Dell 2 years ago. Actually, my background is 15 years in enterprise, working on the Baltic countries, even Estonia as well. So we have right now very interesting times. Happens a lot of new things on the market and moving to the digital, and we trying to participate very actively in this area with the partners and the customers.
Great. And then we have Andis, Šteinmanis from Kaspersky lab.
Hello, good afternoon everybody. I'm a managing director of Kaspersky Lab Baltic. I've been here for 5 years with the company. My IT background goes back, let's say I started in 1995, so I'm afraid to say how many years it is. But I've seen everything, starting from the x86 computers now to what we have today. So everything has been, in front of my eyes.
Great. We have such experienced people, and me bringing some fresh blood and startup passion on stage. So let's kick off with the definitions. What are we talking about here at all? What does it mean, like digital as a business strategy? Simo, what's your take on that?
I think what we're seeing in different industries is that actually the way the industry and the value chain is being built and how to extract value from different kinds of business processes is changing because of a technology disruption and emergence of different platforms. And great examples of that is, of course, Uber being the world's largest taxi company, not owning a single taxi. And even in Finland, for example, there is a startup that is 8 months old that is currently the largest restaurant in Helsinki, but they don't own a single restaurant. So that is what's happening in the digital world, and that is the reason why we need to think traditional industries kind of like from a new perspective, how to create new customer experience, new workforce experience, and new kinds of business processes with help of technology.
So the enterprise needs to catch up somehow with all the startup moment, basically.
Not only enterprises, but also cities and the government. So it's not only the enterprise segment where this is happening, but it is happening across the board.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much inevitable. Vladimiras, Andis, what's your take on?
Yeah, I agree fully, because the digital world is coming not just with some innovative companies who is acting like disruptors on the market, but the rest of the people, the rest of the business, even government, schools, must to adapt because new generation of the people is coming. Yeah, all of them are using digital devices and they like, to do everything, or at least most of things digital. And the business must to think about the future, how to be ready for new customers. Yeah, not just for existing, but for the new as well. And we see a lot of things, what is happening on the market, taxi business. We see what is happening with the old taxi companies, it's a good example, We see that what is interesting that new, disruptive and innovative company giving for us, as for customers, better service, You even price new cars, and so on. And we see that in all areas, in IP, TV, and many things. And these companies usually, who is first, they are very, very successful and profitable. But the rest of the people must as well to adapt to that and somehow adapt IT processes and make them digital too.
All right.
I would say it's all about the integration. Normally we have a lot of applications in different enterprises or government institutions, and they have to talk together, and that's the digital. I mean, that's the strategy. Otherwise, and I think Estonia is a good example where you have this ID card, and you can do a lot of things, and all these applications and databases are integrated. So that's truly digital. It's not just to play with your telephone or a tablet, but as you said, the value chain it should be integrated. I mean, you have to get out of it. It's through automation.
Yeah, we see more and more new companies, new business models using mix of different models and bringing something new on the market, right? So what are the other top trends that you see in your industry that are maybe not so obvious, but are surprising trends that we all should really be aware of? What is approaching us?
Well, I think one thing is absolutely different kinds of partnerships that we need to have the encouragement to establish. None of us can make digitization happen, not from the IT technology players' perspective and not any single company on their own. So we really need to be open for new kinds of partnerships. And we have an interesting example from UK where we were contacted by the local biochemistry company and kind of like the farming institute. And we were like, okay, farming institute, what does that have to do with us? And it turned out that they had a project called Cows in Internet. We were like, okay, internet and cows, okay, how does these two things relate? But apparently they had a project where they did some implants to the cows where they were really actually able to monitor their health condition and have a real-time analytics on their condition. So I think everything is becoming digital, even the cows, believe it or not.
So it's not a question of why should we care about digital, but rather a question of how, because it's happening anyway, right?
And what they were aiming for is to extract data, create a platform where the cows are starting to produce ones and zeros. And when they start to produce ones and zeros, you have unlimited amount of options what you can do with the data. So you can start optimizing your feeding patterns, you can start locating the cows and everything. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to create a mindset where we start thinking, okay, how do I convert things into digital format? How do I connect that into my backend applications? Start extracting data, model the data so that my business can actually start making better decisions and better insights to what's happening.
So actually the data coming out from the cows becomes more valuable than the milk or meat itself.
Well, I don't know. I think it's optimizing the production of the milk. That's the point.
But you can sell the data and then analyze more cows and make more money out of that.
Absolutely.
Great. Any other crazy trends that you have noticed?
This is not the crazy things, it's actually the life. I would extend, there is a new, very fashion topic, as I mentioned today during my presentation. The name of this topic is Internet of Things, yeah. And crops and agriculture is one probably of the industry area where Internet of Things could be implemented, and it's already implemented, I would say, in some countries and some companies. But the general umbrella of that is Internet of Things. Actually, making the business fully digital, it doesn't depend what kind of the business, but probably most of the business are using some detectors, like some factories, could be healthcare, it could be agriculture, and these detectors are sending a lot of information to data center. Probably we need to filter some with the gateways, then we need to analyze the software, the data with the special software, and then we need to make decision. It could be as well done in digital world or by humans, but a lot of things are moving there, even smart house, smart home, when you have different type detectors at home, and home can be managed. These are happening right now, and Internet of Things is already in some areas, and business is moving to this area where it's possible to use such kind of digital. Yeah, I would say that we are living in very interesting times when we have a lot of areas where digital things are coming, and managing of them is very interesting. So we are living really in interesting times here.
I have a question to the audience, just to keep you wake up. Do you know what's the biggest and largest thing which is connected to the internet?
Physically the largest thing?
Sorry?
Physically the largest thing or the largest thing?
Physically the largest thing.
Some kind of ship?
No. Sorry? Factory? No.
Container ship?
No. It's a great Hadron Collider.
What's that?
Hadron Collider in Switzerland. You know, this big thing where they split the atoms.
Yeah, at CERN Nuclear Institute, right?
So, from the security point of view, I mean, it should be secure, that nobody plays with it, right? So we have to think about the security all the time. And in the next future, talking about the Internet of Things, probably you will have your television, you know, connected to your banking application. You will do the payments maybe from your living room. And still, you know, it should be protected, that nobody steals your money from it. And I have to say that at Kaspersky Lab we have already the prototype for the television protection ready. So when the time comes, we'll be rolling it out.
Can you also already have prototypes to protect your cows being hijacked by hackers that can transport them to another field?
Actually. Not really the living houses, but we do have the let's say products and knowledge to do the industrial protection. So we are starting to have projects, and one project successfully, let's say the pilot phase finished in Latvia in Ventspils port. So we are having the products and expertise to help the companies, help the manufacturers, to help the, let's say, transporters of the hazardous goods to be more secure and safe for the environment, for everybody.
Regarding IoT, I think that's a prime example of the digitization, and as said, it's really about connecting the unconnected, and it will go beyond our imagination, and there's a forecast that 500 billion devices will be connected by the year of 2020. And what that is creating is actually, I don't fully underline the vision of those devices sending the data back into the data centers, and then you start having different kinds of analytics from there. We simply don't have the capacity of the networking bandwidth or the data centers to actually do that in a traditional way. So what we need to do is we need to start actually creating different kinds of analytics already at the edge of the network, because we simply cannot transport all the data back and forth, and there is also no time for actually doing the traditional way of IT, before making the decision. So 40% of those 500 billion connections will be machine to machine. So there will not be intervention of human being. So we need to make sure that we have enough of intelligence in the infrastructure. We need to have enough of analytics enabled at the edge of the network, because they're talking to each other without actually going first to the data center. And then what's important is that actually for security, network becomes the most important security sensor and also security enforcer. And what this means is that network sees a lot of things before they enter into the data center. And in those sensors, what we have in the different devices, you don't have enough of intelligence to actually carry a security client, for example. So you really need to start focusing on, okay, how do you create this nerve grid of sensors from your network devices that are intelligent and able to produce this visibility of what's happening there? Because do you know what is the greatest security threat to all of the IT and digitization?
I would assume it's humans.
It's human being. So how do you detect the anomaly of the human behavior change in the pattern, which is normal, which is not normal, so meaning contextual awareness. So I think that will change a lot of the traditional thinking of IT and IT infrastructure, IT architectures, and we really need to be ahead of that game to be able to embrace the digitization and IoT.
Which exactly brings to a question, like not every one of us has like cows with sensors running around and all the IoT things. We are mostly running our day-to-day stuff, but we still have people changing. What are the things that we need to keep in mind with our Generation Z, and how do we work with all the new people? How do we keep our systems safe or solid? Let's start from security. That's
Yeah. I think that the number one is the education, that we need to be aware of what kind of threats we can have, and then the next thing is to have a protection, obviously. So it's very simple.
Are there some interesting examples of people how they, without their knowledge, how they are exploiting the systems? What we should really be aware of? How do we make sure? How can we at all validate if our systems and processes and strategies are up to date with all this? Is there a way to run an audit on that, or some simple questions what to ask ourselves or our employees if we are really the future proof, or we are lagging behind and competitors will just?
I would say that everything depends on new generation, because all innovations actually are coming from young, innovative people, very active. They are usually thinking not in the standard way like most of the people are thinking. And we have a lot of examples, like, for example, the Facebook or Google, or even Michael Dell, yes. So they have started a very disruptive and innovative and new way vision business. And we see that such kind of the companies today are very successful. That's why I think that young generation is very important. They're using practically even more than one digital device. And as I mentioned at the beginning, they are future customers, or maybe my colleagues, or maybe your colleagues as well, and they are changing the world. In my understanding, the IT infrastructure as well must be ready for the changes. Today, what we see that the IT infrastructure is quite conservative, and to change it quickly or buy new, you cannot do that in 1 year. So usually the infrastructure customers are selecting for 3, 5, or 7 years. But the life is changing very quickly in digital way, and sometimes you need to adapt, and with existing infrastructure is quite difficult to do. The trend of IT is that everything must become modular, scalable, and based on open standards. Then you can adapt very quickly to the changes on the market, what becomes to be digital. Yeah? That's actually the Dell approach to build a system modular, very open, based on open standards, and making the systems as much as possible software defined to be very flexible and adapt to new generation and new businesses, what is available on the market or coming on the market.
I fully agree, and I think the pace at which the change is a constant kind of like state. That's what we need to take into consideration, and also the level of expectation that the young generation has, even younger than I am, but the real internet generation, because they are used to having those applications immediately at their disposal. So we need to start thinking about how do we consumerize the IT services so that they are almost like delivered from an e-store or from a portal catalog, and then automatically provisioned to the infrastructure without any manual CLI kind of like typing there in between. And that is a massive change in our organization, in our way of thinking the traditional IT infrastructure. And I fully agree that openness is really the key, how we can build that end-to-end automation. And we have been embracing openness also very much, and I think we have the largest ecosystem of all in the SDN, even though we are the networking company. So many were saying that, okay, when this SDN is coming, all the networking players are going to be wiped out from the landscape. So has that happened? No. And who are the most biggest embracers of SDN? It's us, for example. So we have over 4,000 customers already with the deployments of SDN. So we really need to be open and as I said in the beginning, open for different kinds of ecosystems. So we have our interface to Dell servers, even though we're competing in the server market. We're building our joint architecture for hybrid cloud with Microsoft, even though we're competing with them in the collaboration space. So this co-opetition and co-development is becoming the industry standard, and if you're not capable of doing that, you will be left alone.
But the IT people, can I see your hand? Who considers like more technical person? Who's like IT department, head of IT department? Yeah, more hands. Almost half. So
it's okay to be IT guy. So.
Of course, but aren't you guys worried that these damn trends are disturbing our work? Our work is to keep the system stable, up and running, make sure that nothing happens because we are responsible for the uptime and so on. And how can you now have to be open for all the change? How can you really manage the change? Like every day someone new is approaching, hey, why don't we do this and that? Why don't we take this into account? Everyone's having new devices what sort of need to work, and all the people have crazy ideas what do we want. How do we manage with these all the new requests?
What I can see is that at least in Finland we had a very big outsourcing kind of like wave. We're actually going through, I think, wave 3 or 4 in the outsourcing. It always gets different kinds of shapes and forms. But what happened is that enterprises, for example, outsourced also their IT skills. And what is happening now is that in order for you to have a digital strategy that is actually supporting your business strategy, you need to have the architecture ownership. So regardless of if you're a business person or if you're an IT person, you need to have the same strategy and same view on the architecture. And the architecture is not just IT infrastructure architecture. It's not only the application architecture, it's also the business architecture. So actually technology architecture and business architecture are converging, and this is what is really creating the success with the digitization. So I would say that regardless of what the position is within the company, there needs to be a certain level of integration and understanding of technology so that you're able to support your business success as well.
Mm-hmm. How can you really achieve that? How can the IT people really sell their ideas to the board to make sure that everything is up to date, because it's always involves more costs and so on? How to build like bulletproof nice systems? What are your tips on making that influence to the managers?
Well, it's obviously to talk to the managers and influencers and decision makers. You have to think like them. So you have to talk money. You know, you don't have to say I need this new shiny server or something, but you have to think about the business benefits or savings or gains or whatever, and talk in that way.
I see that, let's say, in some companies in the world, in the US, in the business, there are new trend when in the company they have one or two persons responsible for the digital company strategy. They're not like CIO. The name of this responsibility is Chief Digital Officer. Yeah, and such people are analyzing what is happening on the market related to particular business of this company, and they are making the strategy and the processes for the CEO and CEO. So they are giving suggestions how to implement new technologies in order to be very competitive and innovative. Unfortunately, there are not many companies who have Chief Digital this for the operations inside of the company, but this is the trend, because otherwise to be profitable and competitive becomes too difficult. So, like Michael Dell mentioned it, go bigger or go home, maybe. Something like that.
I think it's all about communication as well. I think traditionally businesses have been very silo organized, and that is no longer the way it can be. So you really need to have a transparency between the different functions in the enterprise, or even in a government or a city. So we have a lot of examples from smart cities and cities who are really embracing digitization, that you have traditional city functions like traffic control, or you have a port control where you have ships coming in and out. So there, for example, in Hamburg, we have enabled the city of Hamburg to build a smart port and traffic control, so that they are actually interconnected, so that you can see when the ship is arriving to the harbor, when they're actually then releasing the trolleys to come out, they give the green light traffic so that they can go smoothly across a bridge, which is actually a bottleneck for their logistics. And then they have a waiting zone for the trucks who are coming into the ship, so that they can control all the traffic. Previously, these were siloed systems. They didn't have any kind of connectivity. So this is really, from technical perspective, that the different siloed systems need to connect to each other and talk to each other. It's same for the business and the different organizational functions. They really need to start talking to each other better, so that they can really understand, okay, what can the IT enable business to do, and what are the business requirements from the business to IT. And this is what I'm seeing happening across the different organizations.
Do you think there are any KPIs that managers or leaders or even CEOs should have on their table every week that relate directly to IT metrics? How can you make sure that they are involved in their everyday life?
I think the key metrics for digitization is really financial metrics. So if you're successful, you can maintain profitable, and you can create new businesses and grow your top line. On the other hand, if you're not staying ahead of the game, you will be lost in your business, and someone else is coming and extracting the value from your existing business. And I think that's really the most important metrics. And exactly like you mentioned, if there is no financial KPI or a return on investment for a certain investment, it will not happen. On the other hand, if you have something to suggest to the sales or the leadership of your organization for new businesses enabled by technology, if they don't have the number in front of them that, okay, how much incremental revenue or additional profit I can gain, there will not be any solution or digitalization happening. So I think only technical KPIs will not lead to a success, but there needs to be really business KPIs that are really the right level of metrics that we need to have digitization.
But how can you build the right set of assumptions for the change of business if the change is so fast? How can you really make those investments in like 3 or 5 years? You don't really know what's going to happen. How can you manage that sort of agility?
I would say that there is no one rule for all companies, in one time. So because I think that very depends on the type of the business, maybe some brokers on the stock, they need to make decisions, very fast, decisions, analyze the data, maybe in a few seconds. Some probably other companies can make decision once per week, once per month. It very depends on the model, on the competition and so on. So I would say that there is no, let's say, the one rule for everybody, but we see that the world is moving to digital, and we mentioned good examples already, like taxi companies or IPTV, or even good example is Apple when Spotify came to the market. And now actually not too much people are using Apple Store for the music, Somehow any organization must decide how is critical for them to make the fast decisions. Your question was related, IT managers or CEO weekly must have some reports and to make the decisions. I cannot tell you that weekly, maybe monthly, but as I mentioned, it very depends on the business type and how it's critical for them, how the competition strong is, and so on. If you have the business not related to IT at all, you can be successful as well. In some cases, That's the life, so, actually. We, like companies from Cisco, like Dell, we can act like, advisor technology. And by the way, we have possibility to provide Internet of Things solution for the customer end-to-end if it's needed. But customer, for the beginning, must to tell about their business, about their needs. Then we are coming like technology advisor, how the solution must look, or how we think that it must look, and what of the benefits you are getting from that. That's probably the correct way, I think. So act like technology advisors for different type of the businesses.
So you suggested to listen advice from vendors like you. Then how do you keep yourself up to date? Maybe you have some exciting secret labs working on the latest technologies. How can we make sure that you have the latest info and you will be like really open and honest to us with that, to trust you as the experts?
To the previous question, my answer would be try fast, fail fast. So we need to create a culture where we have an encouragement to actually go and try something early enough in a safe environment, test that with certain group of customers or end users, and then decide whether you want to move forward. And we're doing that actually all the time. So we're spending something like 6.5 billion for innovation on an annual basis, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we have all kind of like tens of thousands of people doing that, but we actually do different kinds of innovation tactics. So we're a venture capitalist, so we have in our portfolio currently approximately 200 startups where we invest money. We have people working for those companies, and then if those companies come up with a great technology that we can actually bring to our organization and start really accelerating more value from that, that is a great way to actually speed up the process. And we have an excellent example of that with the Meraki, which is the cloud-managed networking platform. We acquired the company when they were making 200 million revenue only 3 years ago. Currently, they're creating more than 1 billion of revenue. And also, when we entered the server market some 6 years ago, it was exactly like this. We inserted venture capital money and some key people to an organization who were able to work in a very startup manner, create a new, very disruptive technology, and actually that is where the converged infrastructure was really becoming the life. And then we acquired them back, and 5 years after we were the #1 in the world in the play service and #1 in the US. So I think it's really about the innovation as a culture, what you do internally, what you do as a spin-offs and startup investments, and what you do in a partnership. Because now we, for example, launched a strategic partnership with Apple. So what Apple is doing, they're building native clients to their mobile phones and mobile devices to actually control, for example, IP phones and our communication infrastructure. And we are building capabilities to our access points, for example, to create a great user experience for the Apple devices with different kinds of caching technologies and those. So we really need to push the boundaries of innovation and do different things at the same time to actually come up with something disruptive and really be quick also in the innovation process.
If I may add to the previous question also, that I think that one of the key points is that the communication and involvement of the IT department, because let's say usually we think that IT department are the strange people sitting somewhere behind the closed doors, and then we make a lot of business decisions, and one day we come to them and say, here it is, now you do it, and they say, oh, okay, we see it for the first time, we have 3 hours to do it, and nobody knows how to do it. So if there is an involvement, if we make some plans, some business decisions, and we involve also the IT department or the people who know how to implement it, then it goes faster, then we can react faster to the changes.
All right. Do we have microphones for the audience as well? Does any of you guys have, guys or girls, a few girls as well, have raised any questions so far, doubts, something that you disagree with? Let's provoke some discussion. No, everything is, Estonians always like, accept it, yes. And then in the evening you go out, take drinks, and you tell what's really on your heart. Can I have some disagreements from you guys? Someone, step up, be brave. Or
I have a great new concept for. I'm not gonna implant you with microchips like for the cows, but I heard that the Estonians, like us in Finland, we start talking when we're in sauna. So next time when we have a panel, we need to heat this up to 60 degrees, so we're kind of like creating the same atmosphere. So maybe we can then get more comments and questions from the audience as well. Not to forget the beer.
Yes, beers indeed. So, how do you, Kaspersky and Dell, do you have some programs to work with startups as well, or how do you work on the innovation part?
In Kaspersky, well, it's we are having the programs, education programs, training programs, and some contests for young people who are entering the, let's say, labor market, who are studying, who are doing some thesis or some research, scientific jobs. And so we are gathering them together, doing the camps for them, and kind of educating and creating a next generation of the people who will create some great protection products for us. And yeah, they're from all over the world, and we also have the team, research team, which consists of more than 30 people. They are located around the world, so they are constantly analyzing difficult and complex malware samples. So, and they're coming, like today we heard the number, we have 325,000 new samples every day. So we need more people and more power to work with it.
As I mentioned, Dell has very clear strategy for the IT. We have the solutions for the verticals, as well we have the solutions for educational vertical, like universities and the colleges, and we are quite successful in this area. But the idea of our strategy is, as I mentioned, to be as much as possible open. use the modular systems and as much as possible software defined. Yeah, we have this hyper-converged products. You can adapt and you can use different type of the models like computer nodes. You can use the storage nodes, and you can use this infrastructure in traditional way, and you can use in innovative way. For example, software-defined storage. You can build such kind of solutions today. And we have very strong partnership with major software-defined storage vendors on the market, like Nutanix, like Microsoft, like VMware, Everrail, Nexenta, and others. And such kind of flexibility is giving in universities for the students a lot of possibilities to try one or another solution on OpenStack or to choose the Microsoft way. So we are very open here, and we're using open standards. If the standard is open, the customer or universities can take just our platform and run it on industry standard platform, any solution what is available on the market. Even in the networking, we were working more than 2 years selling to the market the switches without operating system or with operating system. It's up to the customers, up to university. They can choose switches with Dell operating system, or they can take it like a server, I would say empty, and they can take the Cumulus Networks operating system based on Linux or Big Switch and so on, and they can build very innovative way, open network, because everything is moving to software-defined and even networking as well. So there is, as I mentioned, we're living in very interesting times, and students can have such of the technology and study this technology even today. And this is available already.
And I think what is critical and what we have done at Cisco is always to disrupt ourselves. So we need to have the encouragement of pushing the boundaries a little bit. So when we started to talk about IP telephony, we were the ones who actually came up with the protocols and actually delivering and transporting the packages of voice on top of the IP. And we were told that you're crazy, you're cannibalizing your own business, but yet still we did it. And we have done that a number of times, and I think that is the way we have been able to keep up the pace and also a little bit disrupt the whole market. And I think we're going to see that as well in the future. So we're really dedicated to be the ones who are really defining where the whole IT landscape is going with the power of innovation. And like I mentioned, we have this massive amount of small startups and all kinds of innovation happening, because I think especially during the digitization era, innovation and the ability to actually create something new and disrupt is going to be the factor that is going to define success as well. And I think we've been able to, from a IT perspective, create a quite good position for ourselves. So we're the largest in terms of revenue in security. We're the largest in the IT infrastructure. We have very broad capabilities. Now the question really is, where do we go next? And that's what's keeping me at least interested with the industry. So we don't know where we're going, but I know that it's definitely going to change. So that's very interesting.
So you have to be open for change.
Absolutely.
What happens if you're not? What happens if you're conservative and stick to your old trustworthy things that work? You want to make sure that everything runs smoothly. What happens if you don't embrace the change, if you don't take risks, try fast, fail fast? What are the threats then if we stay in our comfort zone, in our security zone?
There is an old saying, everything changes. If you don't change, you get changed. Nowadays, it's even more important.
So maybe it's even same with the security. It's not a safe and security zone, but we also have to be really open to everything new. Otherwise, we're not secure anymore, right?
Right, yes.
Correct. So we already mentioned it a couple of times, the same taxi business. So if it's not, this business is not adapting, yeah, they actually going out. And another one example is very good, the problem Nokia. Yeah, so the company probably have done the decisions not in time, yeah. And from the number one, yeah, in mobile phones, they become to number N, something like that. It could be with any business on the market. So if you are not adapting, that's meaning that yes, you're probably losing your chance.
Of course, coming to the Nokia example, I know it from a fairly close distance. It still hurts my heart a little bit. But what was really key about and the lessons learned, we have heard and seen some of the writings afterwards. That what was the lessons learned from the Nokia failure, and that was really the transparency in the company. So actually, there was a culture of fear for anything that is bad in the market. So when the first touchscreens came to the market, the middle management were shit scared to actually talk about that and how successful that is to the top management, and they got kind of like distracted from reality. So that's one thing, that maintain the whole transparency from top to bottom is really the key. And the other one is that really, as part of the digitization and running a successful business, is also the data and the insight. The companies who are not able to utilize the data and really understand what's happening in the different parts of the business, that they're not going to be successful in the long run. So we really need to embrace all the data points that we can actually collect from different operations and different metrics, and then use the analytics to actually understand what decisions need to be made in order to be successful also for the future.
Great. So to wrap up the discussion, it's all about transparency, openness, doing cooperations with others, because otherwise it's just a wave of disruption. Unless we're on top of the wave, we get under it. We really have to be open for that. Make sure our departments talk to each other, because otherwise it will happen like Nokia. You don't want to be there, right? So openness, really hard topic for Estonians, but we can at least try to exercise that, and our comedians will also show us a little bit how to try openness. But to wrap up the panel, I would like to give you a warm round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.